and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and this is Utterly Reading. So today I am going to be going over my August wrap-up and all the books that I have read. There are actually 8 of them. I have part of them right here. There are a couple that I have had from the library, so I will add in pictures of those covers as well. So I figured that I will just kind of try and go in order of when I read them. So the very first one that I finished this month was Valour. This is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series by Gwynne. This book was so good. Much happens in these books that it is extremely difficult to explain them all, but it is a high fantasy, and there are giants, and there's magic, and all kinds of different things like that are included. The first one, sorry, I forgot to grab it. The first one being Malice. So I will read you the synopsis of this, since I can't really read you the synopsis of this. So, for Malice, it says, the world is broken. Corbin wants nothing more than to be a warrior under King Brennan's rule, to protect and serve, but that day will come all too soon, and the price he pays will be in blood. Evnus has sacrificed too much, it seems, but what he wants, the power to rule, will soon be in his grasp, and nothing will stop him once he has started on this path. Veritas is the newest member of the warband for the High Prince Nether. He is one of the most skilled swordsmen to come out of his homeland, yet he is always under the shadow of his older brother. Nether has ideas and a lot of plans. Many of them don't involve his father, the High King Aquilus, nor does he agree with his father's idea to summon his fellow kings to council. The Banished Lands has a violent past where armies of men and giants clashed in battle, but now giants stir anew, stones weep blood, and there are sightings of giant worms. Those who can still read the signs see a threat far greater than the ancient wars, for if the Black Sun gains ascendancy, mankind's hopes and dreams will fall to dust, and it can never be made whole again. So this book is amazing, and if you've watched my TBR for September, I do have the third one on here, so I will be continuing this series in September, which I am extremely excited about. But overall with this book, I gave it 5 stars. His world building in this book is just amazing. Everything, the politics and the magic and the creatures and just everything he's thought out so well. And it was really interesting to read, and I really had a lot of fun with it. And it was even better because I kind of knew the characters a little bit better from the first time around. And so I really look forward to continuing in this series. 5 stars. The next book that I read was Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. This is a kind of a spin-off to To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. When this one came out, or right before I bought it, I had looked it up and seen that it was 300 pages. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is over 800, so I was like, okay, we'll see how it goes. Because Christopher Paolini is an auto-buy for my husband and I. He wrote the Aragons, The Inheritance Cycle, and To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, like I said. And we just absolutely love his writing. So it was an auto-buy anyways. But I ended up giving this book 2 stars, and I'll tell you why. This book could have been 300 more pages long easily. It felt like as soon as something started to happen, it ended. So this book, I'll read you the synopsis of this one. It says, in the silence of space, a beacon calls. July 25th, 2234, the crew of the Adamira discovers the anomaly. On the seemingly uninhabited planet Talos 7, a circular pit 50 kilometers wide. Its curve not of nature, but design. Now a small team must land and journey on foot across the surface to learn who built the hole and why. But they all carry the burdens of lives carved out on disparate colonies in the cruel cold of space. For some, the mission is the dream of a lifetime, for others a risk not worth taking, and for one it is a desperate attempt to find meaning in an uncaring universe. Each step they take toward the mysterious abyss is more punishing than the last, and the ghosts of their past follow. So it sounds really good, right? This book, so basically they are looking at this planet in space from their ship, and they see this giant hole. And they have no idea how it got there, or if it might be alien life, or what could have possibly made it. But they wanted to go and check it out. So there's really high winds that blow all the time. And so they're like, well, we'll land the ship here, and then from there we will walk to where this hole is. That is 90% of this book, is the walk. Half of it is the main character, Alex, I believe it said his, I believe his name was. So the main character, Alex, has also recently lost his wife, so he is grieving, and he is grieving big time. So a lot of this is when his wife passed away, she left him access to all of her memories. So he could go into this file at any point in time in her life, click on it, and see things through her eyes. He cannot bring himself to look at it, though, because he is just grieving so much. That was a huge part of this book, but it went nowhere. The other part was the walk. They walked and they walked and they walked, and they had these big stone creature things. They called them turtles. They were mobile, and they were some kind of an essence, but it never explained what they were or what they were doing, just that you could potentially piss them off, and they seemed to be following you. That was it. It didn't say anything else. So yeah, overall, I gave this book 2 stars. I feel like it could have been way longer, so that way he could have kind of explained things a little bit more, added on to the story where it got good, and just had more to it. So, 2 stars. The next book that I read was The Spare Room by Andrea Bartz. This one is a domestic thriller. My husband got this for me for my birthday, and this one was different. So it's basically this girl is engaged to be married to this guy, and they've kind of hit a rough patch because it's during COVID, and he kind of freaked out. Like, he got nervous and said that he kind of wanted to just pump the brakes on the marriage and wanted to unset the date of the wedding and just kind of put it off for an unofficial amount of time, basically. And she freaked out, thought that he was cheating on her, and tore the office apart. And so, like, the whole thing is that their engagement, their relationship is kind of on the rocks. So she's made friends with this girl from high school that has invited her to go and live with them for a while, kind of get out of town and get away from everything that she knows. And so she does it, and she goes and lives with this couple, but then she finds out that this couple has actually had a previous relationship with another woman, that they had invited another woman into their marriage, and she has since gone missing. She disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to her. The first half of this book, I literally told my husband, I said, this so far is not a thriller. This is a drama about a relationship, or a couple of relationships, and them forming a friendship. Not a thriller. But I told him that you never know, because 2 chapters later, things could completely turn around and change, and it just become more interesting. And that's exactly what happened. Literally 2 chapters later, that I read the next day, something happens with the main girl, what was her name? Kelly. The main girl, Kelly, finding out more about this missing woman that was involved with this couple that she's living with. And the whole thing is trying to figure that out, and she enters into a relationship with them, and so is trying to figure out kind of where she stands in comparison to this other woman. Overall, this one was fine. It wasn't my favorite. It's not my usual kind of thing. I don't usually read more domestic types. But it was fine. It was good. And I ended up giving this one, like I said, I gave it 2 stars, I think, just because it was really, really slow at the beginning, but it did pick up quite a bit at the end, and it did get better. So the next book that I read was actually Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton, and I will put a picture of it here. This one is a nonfiction, a biography, memoir, whatever, about Tom Felton and his time that he spent with acting as a child, and really kicking off his career with the Harry Potter movies. And this book was so much fun to read. As a huge Harry Potter fan, and my sister is too, I actually sent her, I took like pictures of 5 or 6 pages of one chapter of this book, and I sent it to her. I said, hey, you need to read this, because I am laughing so hard that it's hilarious. But it was really fun to read. The beginning of it was a little bit slow. It talks about how he first gets into acting and how he would spend time with his brothers and fishing, and he was the youngest of 4 brothers. And he would spend a lot of time fishing with his brothers, and they would give him crap endlessly. And so his family really kept him grounded. And then it talks about him getting the part on Harry Potter, and how walking in, he had never read it, he had never heard of anything about it, and it just ended up, everything worked out. And talks about his time on set, being engaged with some of the other actors, such as Alan Rickman, who played Snape, and Jason Isaacs, who played his father, Lucius Malfoy. And that part that he's talking about, about Jason Isaacs, just was insane to me. He talks about how Jason Isaacs is one of those actors that he will be telling a joke up until, they say action with this movie. He will be joking around, telling stories, and then as soon as they say action, it's like he flips a switch and he is that character, which to me in my mind is crazy, because Lucius Malfoy is just such a cold character, and he plays the part perfectly. But it's just kind of crazy to think that he goes from joking around and being a completely different person, and then you flip a switch and he is Malfoy. So overall, I think that one I didn't end up putting a rating on my spreadsheet that I do, but I think I ended up on Goodreads giving it like 4 stars. It was a little bit slow at times, it was a memoir. You have to start somewhere, you have to end somewhere. Harry Potter doesn't go on forever, but it was really, really fun to read, and I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read was Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. Again, another one from the library. This one, I have heard so much about this, and this goes into this home for wayward children that have gone through doorways into other worlds, basically. Kind of like an Alice in Wonderland type of thing. And then they come back for one reason or another, and it throws off their life completely. 50% of the time, they are looking for a way to get back into the world that they left. And then the other 50% of the time, they want nothing to do with it. They absolutely hate it. So this book, it was one that she had gone through, and she really wanted to be able to go back. She felt like she just needed to find her way. She had to know for certain that that is what she wanted with her life, and then she would potentially be able to go back. But then she's at this wayward school, and somebody is found murdered. And then somebody else is found murdered. And so because it's a school, or it's seen as a school to the normal world, they think we need to solve these murders, because otherwise people are going to start asking questions, they're going to shut us down, and we can't help out these kids. About this group of kids that are trying to solve these murders and figure out what actually is going on at this school. It was a really short one. It was a really quick read. I read it in one day. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. I was really confused at the beginning because I didn't really know anything about it going in. But I would look at continuing them. It did intrigue me enough that I would look at reading some more. From what I hear, you don't have to read them in any kind of order, but I personally like to read them in order because that's me. So I gave that one 3 stars. The next book that I read, oh my gosh, was Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy Snyder. This book, I probably said about 50 times to myself while I was reading it, what the hell am I reading? This book was so weird. It is a apocalyptic story that it's post-COVID. It's a different kind of virus after COVID is done and over with that is very similar in ways, but the worst cases of it basically cause you immense grief. It causes you to get sick and start puking and basically don't stop until you have lost part of your stomach lining, and it's awful. So not everybody lives from it, and the handful that do, they get broke up into stages. So there's the stage 0 that have like barely any symptoms, not a big deal. First stage, you have some symptoms, but you're basically like a common cold or any other virus that you get over the symptoms and you just move on with your life. Stage 2, you have lost enough of the nutrients in your body that you have to start consuming human blood in order to continue to live and live your life healthily. Which, if that's not weird enough that this doesn't turn you into a vampire if you are a stage 2, at stage 3, you don't need human blood, however, you do need brains. So you go from, you can either, if you get it worse, you either become vampiric, or you become zombified. If you're in the stage 3, you are sensitive to light, and you have to ingest brains. And it's all basically what it comes around to is the apocalypse. That everything is going to die, and only a select few people are going to be able to help recreate the world or like continue on in the world. This book was so freaking weird. I don't usually read horror, and I don't usually read like things like this, but I was really curious about it because the cover is just really cool looking, and I just wanted to try it. So I read this one, and I didn't really care for it. It's not my usual kind of thing. I think I gave it 2 stars because it was intriguing enough that I did finish it. However, it was definitely not my favorite. It was really weird, and like I said, I was so confused through so much of it, and it just was not what I was thinking it was going to be. So yeah, 2 stars. The next book that I read was Death in the Long Grass, and I don't have a cover for it, but I will put a picture of it here. This is a nonfiction by Peter Capstick. He was a hunter back in the 70s. He hunted big game in Africa. He passed away in 1996, but this is one of a handful of books that he wrote talking about the hunts that he went on, or stories that he was told from other hunters about things that happened in Africa with big game hunting. So it's broken up into sections. In the contents, I don't know if you can see that, but there is lion, elephants, crocodiles, leopards, Cape buffaloes, hippos, rhinos, all different animals. And so he talks about going hunting for different things, and some of the stories in here were so interesting, and he has a good sense of humor in it as well, that it kind of makes you enjoy reading it because he doesn't take himself too seriously, and just a lot of interesting stories that honestly, like, some of them you don't even believe could possibly be real. There are photos throughout the book of the different animals that he's talking about, different photos from Africa. And it's really interesting. He talks about man-eating lions. One story that he talks about in the lion section is that he and another guy were out hunting and had made camp for the night, had gone to sleep on their cots, and then the next morning they woke up and there was a fresh lion print right next to the head of his cot. So a lion had been in their tent the night before, right next to his head. And it just, that's insane. Like, can you imagine having a lion right next to your head? Like, I would pee my pants. So this one was really good. My husband absolutely loves these books, which is why we have them. And finally, he got me to read one of them. And I gave it 4 stars. There were some spots where it kind of went over my head a little bit. He talks about their hunting rifles and things like that. And that went a little bit over my head because I don't know a lot with rifles. But I absolutely loved the stories that he had in here. And then, like I said, his sense of humor, he brought up some really great points. He talked about, elephant ivories and how people would poach elephants to sell their ivories and make money. He talked about the mythical elephant graveyard with people trying to figure out where the heck all these elephants go when they die. And how some people believe that there's just a giant elephant graveyard somewhere in Africa that nobody has ever seen before. That is where that's what happens to an elephant. But they also don't realize that Africa, everything is a scavenger basically. So this one was really, really good. I gave this one 4 stars, like I said, as well, because some things did go over my head just a little bit. Some things did get a little bit slower in parts. But overall, the stories were really, really interesting to read, and I really enjoyed it. If you are into Africa or like hunting in Africa, I would absolutely recommend picking up Peter's Capstick's books. He has a great sense of humor, and his books are just really, really, really interesting. The last book that I've read, this one I just finished, is The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner, and this book is absolutely gorgeous. This is my Barnes & Noble exclusive. It is seriously the most beautiful book that I own. It has to be, because, I mean, look at that. That is on the bare hardcover, and the end papers in here. It's just a beautiful book, and that was part of the reason that I got this. The other reason was because I read The Lost Apothecary a handful of years ago, and I loved this one, and I couldn't wait to read something else by her. So I got this one. But The London Seance Society is a historical fiction, kind of a paranormal book that it's set in 1873. The main character, Lena, her sister was really into paranormal, and she wanted to learn about how to perform seances and basically make her living off of being a medium. And something happened on All Hallows Eve that her sister was murdered. And so this book is about Helena is trying to figure out what happened to her baby sister, and that she will basically stop at nothing to try and solve this murder. She starts to study under the medium Vaudeline D'Alaire, who her sister had also studied under, to try and learn how to do a seance, so that way she could go back to London and perform the seance to try and find out what happened to her sister, because the police have stopped looking. Then Vaudeline gets asked to come back to London in secret, because she's apparently running from something or someone in London that we don't really know about, and is asked to come back to London to perform a seance to try and find the killer of someone who also died on All Hallows Eve, which was an old friend of hers. And this is the book about them traveling to London together to try and solve these murders and see if there is a connection or if just what's going on. This book was really, really fun to read. This one was also a really quick one for me. I really enjoyed it. She does really good about having it be in the 1870s in the old London, that you can imagine it and it's done well, but it's also written to where you understand what's going on and you don't get lost. This book, the plot twist was interesting. It was kind of almost a cozy, like, paranormal historical fiction. The stakes, it was really interesting. The twists were fantastic. I think she played out everything really well. The timing kind of came down to the wire, which was fun. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I think, yeah, this one I gave 4 stars as well. And I would highly recommend it. If you like historical fiction, you like something with a little bit of paranormal, I would highly recommend reading London Seance Society. So that is it. Those are the 8 books that I have read in August. If you haven't seen my September TBR, where I throw knives to choose my TBR, then please check that out. If you have any comments about books that you would recommend for me, things that you think I would like, I would love to hear from you. Hopefully soon I will have more videos coming out. So hope you have a wonderful day and happy reading.